What's happening? A good Thursday night to all of you, getting you ready for Miami. Buffalo kicks off in just over an hour right now. It's the Crafts and Kickoffs podcast with Nick Cattles. Last week, we had some good numbers on the podcast, and that's because of all of you. You can do a few things to help grow this show, grow this community. You can give us a thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching there. You can also give us a thumbs up on Facebook, on Twitter. But make sure, if you're watching on YouTube live right now, even on demand, give us that thumbs up. More thumbs means more eyeballs. YouTube wants, quote-unquote, engagement. So the way we do that is by liking the podcast. Also, don't forget to throw a comment in. You might think I'm crazy. You might love what I do. We might disagree. We might agree. Throw a comment in. And don't forget to subscribe to the Nick Cattles channel. We are now over 3,500 subscribers. Again, it's because of all of you. Let's get this out of the way. So last week was the debut episode of Crafts and Kickoffs, and I could not have a craft beer because I was COVID positive. Not a fun time, right? I am happy to report to all of you that this morning I took a test and I am negative, which means the first craft beer of this podcast's existence happens tonight. Now, usually, again, we'll get into the football. Usually, football season, fall, you're thinking a little bit darker of a beer. I'm a big Marzen fan. I'm a big Oktoberfest fan. Going to Oktoberfest on Saturday. So I'm usually a big fan of the Oktoberfests, the Marzens, etc. But it's still somewhat warm outside, isn't it? It's going to be like 80, 85 this weekend. So I'm going with a little bit of a cerveza, if you can see that. This is a cerveza Mexican lager, Shoveltown Brewery. Shoveltown Brewery makes this beer. And it really is a great Mexican lager. It's clean. It's easy to drink, as many Mexican lagers are. I put a few limes in my Mexican lager tonight, so here it is. This is what I will be drinking. Let me know what you're drinking. Let me know if you are a big fan of the Mexican lager. Let me know if you've been to Shoveltown. If you're in Massachusetts, this place is great. So Shoveltown Brewery, cerveza Mexican lager is what I'm drinking. Let me know what you're drinking. Throw a comment in as we move along. All right, let's start. Let's start with story number 5 in the NFL this week. And we started last week with rookie quarterbacks. So many rookie quarterbacks in the first round of the draft in April. There was so much talk about Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and Drake May and Michael Penix and Bo Nix. And so I start this week, much like last week, with the rookie quarterbacks. Before I do that, I'm going to take a sip of my cerveza, my Mexican lager from Shoveltown. Here we go. This, by the way, is the first beer I've had in a couple of weeks. So, tastes like heaven. All right. Let's start with the rookie quarterbacks because none of them excelled. We know that Drake May, he is sitting in New England for now. We're likely not going to see him for at least through the first month and a half of this season. So Drake May continues to learn on the sidelines. Caleb Williams, number 1 pick in the draft. Lots of excitement about Caleb Williams. I watched him a decent amount at USC. I think he's got some special talent. He can do a lot of things on a football field that not many other quarterbacks can do. Now, unfortunately for Caleb, that means he's going to be compared to Patrick Mahomes because Mahomes is a freaking freak. Caleb had a rough start. He struggled out the gates. He completed less than 50% of his passes. He only threw for 93 yards. Caleb Williams in week 1 was the 28th ranked quarterback in football in QBR, according to ESPN. And when we look at Williams, we think about his supporting cast, all the weapons that he has, right? It didn't work in week 1. And this is just to remind people that it's not always easy. Not always easy to just walk onto an NFL field and be dynamite. It's not how it always works. As a matter of fact, a lot of the time, when we talk about the quarterback position, we have a lot of quarterbacks that struggle early in their careers, no matter how much they are beloved by scouts, no matter how much we talk about them. And Caleb, he met that harsh reality in week 1, but he wasn't the only rookie quarterback in the NFL in week 1 that struggled. Bo Nix was not good. Denver Broncos at Seattle, and Bo Nix, he struggled. He completed 62% of his passes. Sounds like a decent number, right? In your rookie debut. He had 138 yards, but he threw not one but two interceptions. Not one but two interceptions thrown by Bo Nix in his season debut, his rookie debut, and he had like almost no throws of 10-plus yards. He struggles beyond the sticks, and this was an issue for Bo Nix in college, consistently being accurate down the field, fitting the football into tight windows. 10 to 15 yards, he'll be okay. But when you ask Bo Nix to stretch the field vertically, he's going to struggle at times, if not an awful lot. And we saw Seattle did that to Bo Nix last week. Those throws of 10-plus yards, he threw a couple of bad balls for picks. Now, it's a tough matchup. In Seattle, they have a lot of good defensive backs, as we know. They've got Woolen, they've got Witherspoon, they've got Love. Their secondary is so talented in Seattle. They have a lot of talent on that back end, which didn't make life any easier for Bo Nix. But Bo Nix struggled. Jaden Daniels was a little, some good, some bad. When you look at Daniels, first half, he wasn't very good. And the Commanders got down. They got down 23-7. Then they got down 30-14. In the first half, Daniels was 5 for 8, 46 yards. Very pedestrian first half from Jaden Daniels. He carried the football 7 times for 56 yards. His second half was much better. Now, what you have to ask yourself is whether or not he was better in the second half because the defense was a little bit lax. They understood they had a big lead, and maybe Daniels picked up, as they would say in fantasy football, they would say some garbage points. There could be some of that. In the second half, though, Daniels played better. 12 for 16. He threw for 138 yards. He also ran the football 9 times for 32 yards. Here's my concern for Jaden Daniels. He ran 16 times last week. That is an obnoxious number. Lamar Jackson ran 16, 17 times in week 1 as well. I don't love the idea of Daniels running 16 times. Daniels, we all know, incredibly athletic. He can beat defenses with his legs. He's that old dual threat quarterback, right? But I don't love the idea of him running 16 times. We've talked about his frame. We talked about it heading into the NFL draft. Would he be able to sustain taking NFL hits and dealing with that kind of stuff, right? The physicality of the NFL. When you look at Daniels on an NFL field, you see how much smaller he is than pretty much everybody else that is out there with him. The other 21 guys are bigger than he is. And when he's running 16 times in his first NFL start, that concerns me. And I know that the coaching staff and Dan Quinn, they are concerned. So I don't love the idea of him running that much, and he's still not sliding. There was one hit, his helmet went flying off. If I'm a Washington fan, I've got big concerns with Jaden Daniels running 16 times and not getting down, not sliding consistently. Every single time he runs with the football, I either want him sliding or I want him getting out of bounds. So it was a pretty tough week. Of course, J.J. McCarthy, he's out for the year. We talked about May. Michael Penix didn't play. Maybe he should have. We'll get to Atlanta a little bit later because they're on my list. But it was a tough week. It was a tough week for rookie quarterbacks. I think all you fans out there that are rooting for one of these rookie quarterbacks, take a deep breath. It's 1 week, and I think it's going to be much better as you move on for a number of these guys, not all of these guys. I don't think all of them will work out. That would be very unusual, but it's one game. It's one game. I think the most pressure is on Caleb Williams because of expectations, not only because he was the number 1 pick, but also Chicago, the talent they have around him. I think a lot of people anticipate Chicago to be a competitive football team. And of course, Chicago won week 1, but it had nothing to do with Caleb Williams. It was all defense, special teams, and one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen from Will Levis. The competition in the NFL, it's difficult, but there are a lot of expectations on Caleb. He's got to play better than he played week 1. Will Sean Payton figure out Bo Nix? And how frustrated will Sean Payton be? You know, last year he had Russell Wilson, wasn't a very good season. The offense wasn't good. The quarterback play wasn't good. The thought process was, hey, Sean Payton's a legitimate coach, right? A lot of people say he's a very good coach, especially on the offensive side of the football. He's going to have to prove it with Bo Nix, and it was not a great start. All right, speaking of starting, we just started. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up if you're watching, whether it's on YouTube. The likes help us. Those thumbs up takes a second of your time, doesn't cost you any money. Give us that thumbs up. Give us that like on YouTube. Throw a comment in. What do you think of the show? What do you think of the rookie quarterbacks? Which rookie quarterback are you riding with and why? So like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review on demand as well. This is the Crafts and Kickoffs podcast with yours truly, Nick Cattles, on a Thursday night before Miami Buffalo kicks off week number 2 in the NFL. I'm going to get to story number 4, but first, I'm going to take a sip of my beer. So whoever is drinking, whatever it is, if it's water, if it's soda, if it's beer, if it's wine, if it's a cocktail, I see Marilyn throwing in there that she loves beer, but she drinks wine and cocktails a lot. I see my guy Chris Chapman jumping in saying good evening, drinking a beer. Terry doesn't drink. That's all good. Doesn't matter. If you drink water, if you drink soda, have a beverage with us. Chris Chapman, thank you. What kind of beer you drinking? That's what I want to know. Here's my Cerveza. Again, Shoveltown Brewery, Cerveza Mexican Lager. I got 3 limes in this puppy. All right, story number 4. The Pittsburgh Steelers. What will the Steelers do at quarterback? Now, Russell Wilson says he's feeling better. He's feeling healthier. He has a calf issue. Justin Fields is likely going to start this weekend. Of course, Pittsburgh, they start their season 1-0. They go to Atlanta. They beat the Atlanta Falcons. The defense was ridiculous. Pretty much what we expect from the Steelers, right? And Mike Tomlin. That defense to be highly competitive, Watt to be a beast. There's no doubt. There's no denying Pittsburgh being good on that side of the football. It's how much are they going to get from the offense? You know, defense gives up 10 points. Defense gives up only 226 yards. Bijan Robinson, 18 carries, 68 yards. Anonymous in with a beer and football. What's up, Anonymous? Marilyn, I didn't mean to talk you into it, but I convinced her. Popped an SA Winter Lager, so a Sam Adams Winter. I'm a big fan of that beer, Marilyn. I'm a big fan of Sam Adams Winter Lager. So enjoy with me. I didn't want to talk you into it. No peer pressure, but enjoy. So back to the Steelers defense. It was terrific. What do they do offensively? It sounds like they plan on starting Justin Fields against Denver. Now, that could be because they want to start Fields over Wilson, or it could be all about this idea of Russell Wilson. I'm not trusting him. We know that Wilson had a bad year in Denver last year. The last year he was in Seattle. He didn't look good. I mean, Russell Wilson looks washed. He looks washed. Justin Fields, he might not be great, but it's not because he's washed. It's just because he might not be great. So when you look at what will Pittsburgh do at quarterback, I would stick with Justin Fields, at least for now. I would not feel any kind of weird urgency to get Russell Wilson on the field. I don't believe in Russell Wilson. I don't believe in him on the field anymore. I don't think he's very good. As I just mentioned, I think he's pretty much washed as an NFL quarterback. The other issue that I have as well is, you know, he doesn't always rub his teammates the right way. His personality, his ego. And a lot of people kind of, you know, they tiptoe around the tulips, so to speak, when they talk about Russell Wilson. But Wilson, he isolates some of his teammates. And Russell Wilson loves himself some Russell Wilson. And if you got the good vibes, as they say, right? If you got the immaculate vibes working with Justin Fields, I wouldn't feel any kind of desperation or urgency to get to Wilson. Because even if Justin Fields doesn't play great, I don't know how much of a difference between Fields and Wilson there is, right? I mean, what's the ceiling of Wilson versus the ceiling of Justin Fields? There's not a whole hell of a lot of difference there as far as from Wilson's point. If you get Fields playing good football and you get him confident in himself, I think his ceiling is higher than Wilson. Absolutely. Wilson's now in his 30s. He's not playing well. He hasn't played well in a while. I'd stick with Justin Fields. Let me call a quick timeout because Charlie has sent a $20 super chat. Welcome to the party, everyone. Welcome, everybody, to the Crafts and Kickoffs episode number 2, getting you ready for NFL Week 2, our top 5 stories of this NFL Week 2 that we're getting ready to enjoy. Thank you, Charlie, my guy. I appreciate you. I think Charlie said earlier that he doesn't drink, so hopefully he's having a soda or a water. All I drink is water and beer. That's the only thing that goes into this belly, drink-wise. An occasional shot. But thank you, Charlie. $20 super chat. Super chat means the world to me. And then my guy, Chris Chapman, comes in, and he throws a $19.99 super chat, thanking Charlie with a beer emoji. So I appreciate you, Chris Chapman. Thank you so much for the $19.99 super chat to the Crafts and Kickoffs. Thank you so much. Charlie, by the way, says he's having a polar seltzer. I believe he had that last week as well. I didn't realize that the polar seltzer until somebody commented on it on the video. Like, hey, Nick, polar seltzers, it's not, it's not a drink. It's not an alcohol seltzer thing. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm an idiot. I went on this big diatribe about Kelly likes seltzers and all this. So Fields, to me, he gives you more of the ceiling. He gives you more potential than Wilson. Yes, he will make mistakes, but you could argue Wilson will make mistakes. Fields, I mean, he had 57 of the Pittsburgh 137 rushing yards in week 1. So we know that he can do damage with his legs. He's not a Jaden Daniels. He's a bigger guy. He's got that frame, right? So he can take some hits. He can take that physicality. So I would lean with Fields. Wilson, 35 years old, a calf injury. Now, I don't know how many Celtics fans are out there watching this right now, but calf injuries scare me. They scare the hell out of me. You look at like Kristaps Porzingis and what happened with him in the Celtics. You get that calf injury. A calf injury can quickly become an Achilles. Not what you want, but a calf injury, a hamstring injury, those two injuries scare the crap out of me. And I would not be rushing Russell Wilson back onto the field at 35 years old with a calf injury, especially the way that he's played football the last few years. Give Arthur Smith some time to work with Justin Fields, see if you can get the most out of Fields, and then if he continues to win football games, then you ride with him. I wouldn't be jumping to Russell Wilson. All right, don't forget, we'll get to story number 3 in a minute. Don't forget to like this podcast as you watch on YouTube, the thumbs up. More thumbs means more eyeballs as we build this community. Don't forget, you can also like this podcast if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Twitter. Give us that thumbs up, throw a comment in, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We talk NFL football every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, Crafts and Kickoffs. We also talk about beer, and I've got my Shoveltown Cerveza tonight, enjoying it as all of you enjoy your drink of choice. Sláinte, as they say, in Ireland. I was supposed to go to Ireland this year. Didn't go. I'm pissed. But there you have it. Oh, it's good. 3 limes, by the way. 3 limes. 3 small limes to go into the Mexican lager. Story number 3. What the hell happened with the Atlanta Falcons last week? Can somebody tell me what happened to the Falcons? That was a yuck performance. That was brutal. A lot of expectations on the Falcons, right? They turned over their coaching staff. They bring in Kirk Cousins. He is supposed to be the answer to their quarterback problems. They then draft Penix, which was fascinating to watch play out. They draft Penix 8th overall after paying Cousins the money that they paid him. And there are a lot of expectations for Atlanta, a lot of people picking them to win the NFC South, including this dude right here. I picked the Falcons to win their division. And week 1 was not a good week. They laid an absolute egg week 1. Here's the biggest problem. It's Cousins. Is he healthy? I don't know how many of you watched, but did he look healthy? Of course, he tore his Achilles last year in week 8. So he is still, roughly 2 months removed from a full year after tearing that Achilles. And he didn't look very comfortable. He didn't look very healthy to me. And I know he told the media this week that he's healthy, he's fine. From what I saw, I don't think Kirk Cousins is trusting that Achilles. Now, it might be healthy. He might not be injured. He might not be, feeling it, so to speak. But at least mentally, Kirk Cousins, to me, looked like a guy who did not trust that Achilles. And maybe it was just a week one isolated thing. Maybe this week he'll look much more comfortable. He got through the game last week and he didn't get hurt. He didn't re-injure himself. But when I look at Cousins, he looks like somebody who's very uncomfortable. He wasn't very mobile. For the most part, he stayed in that pocket. And I don't expect Cousins to look like Daniels or Fields or any of these other quarterbacks. I understand he's mostly a pocket passer, but he looked borderline immobile for most of that game. He looked very unsure. He wasn't getting his bottom half into throws. It didn't look like he was confident planting on that right foot, on that right leg. If you go back, Warren Sharp on Twitter did a great job. He tweeted out this video of every single Kirk Cousins drop back from week one. And you just look at his feet. Look at his feet. Look at his lower body. Look at how he's not stepping into throws. Look at how he kind of stays within a 6 foot radius around him. He doesn't move a lot to the left. He threw a touchdown where he kind of got out of the pocket and moved. That was the best he looked. The vast majority of his dropbacks, he looked like a guy that knew he tore his Achilles last year. And of course, some of that should be expected. But he did not look comfortable. He was 16 of 26 for $155. He threw that touchdown I just talked about, but he also threw 2 interceptions. In weapons, that's not a problem. He's got Pitts. He's got Bijan. He's got London. I mean, when you look at the assortment of weapons that he has, this Atlanta offense should be a good offense, if not really good offense. But it's not going to be really good if Cousins doesn't trust his own body. And if he's stuck there like in quicksand and is not comfortable or confident in throwing the football on that Achilles, that's going to be a problem. And you've got Michael Penix standing there on the sidelines. If Atlanta gets off to a slow start, I don't think it's crazy to believe that Atlanta fans are going to start losing their minds and they're going to start calling and screaming for Michael Penix, which means you made a very, very bad decision to sign Kirk Cousins. If you've got to go to Michael Penix anytime this year, aside from a Cousins injury, that's a disastrous outcome for them. That's a terrible outcome for that Atlanta front office. Now, of course, Atlanta would say, hey, what we drafted Michael Penix, so maybe it'd be a great move, and now we look super smart. Not when you spend as much money on Cousins as they did. That means they massively swung and missed on Cousins. So that's going to be an issue. If Atlanta doesn't get going, that is going to be an issue. And I wouldn't blame Falcons fans if it does become an issue. And the Falcons, here's the thing, okay? So Kirk doesn't look healthy, or he doesn't look like he trusts himself at least. So you lose last week to Pittsburgh in Atlanta. That was the game that you felt like you almost needed to win to start this season. Do you know what the Falcons' schedule is the next 4 weeks? So the Falcons, they lose to Pittsburgh. Now they have to go to Philadelphia. They play Monday Night Football in Philadelphia this week. That's a really tough game. And then they go back to Atlanta. They're at home, which is nice, but they're playing against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They started the year at home against Pittsburgh, on the road, Philly, Monday night, and then they have to host Kansas City. They lost Pittsburgh already. Now they got to go on the road, tough place to play, Monday Night Football, Philly. That stadium is going to be going bananas. And then you got to come back on a short week You come back on a short week, Sunday Night Football against Mahomes and the Chiefs. Then you've got the Saints. Now, I know the Saints, they were great last week. I don't know if I'm on the New Orleans Saints hype train just yet. So you got the Saints in Atlanta. That's a game where you should be okay. After that, you got to play Tampa, who got off to a very good start last week. So a tough schedule for the Atlanta Falcons. But the trouble for Atlanta, it went beyond Kirk Cousins. Zach Robinson, their new offensive coordinator, he was one of those hot names during the offseason, right? A lot of teams were interviewing Zach Robinson. Zach Robinson, his first game that mattered as an NFL OC wasn't good. He was incredibly predictable as a play caller. This is interesting from ESPN Stats Info. The Falcons were in pistol or shotgun formation on 96% of their snaps. Is that because Kirk Cousins is uncomfortable under center because he's got to go back, right? He's got to have a little bit more of a significant drop back. You need to do more physically if you're under center. Is that why? 96% of the play calls, of the snaps in pistol or shotgun. Of the 22 snaps out of shotgun, the Falcons did not run once. Can you imagine that? They were in shotgun 22 snaps. They did not run the football once to their running backs out of shotgun. A little bit of a trend, a little predictable. All 22 snaps in shotgun formation were designed passes. That's showing your hand. Of the 26 snaps out of the pistol, the Falcons ran the ball on 81% of their plays. So think about this. 22 snaps out of the shotgun, not a single designed run. 26 snaps in pistol, 81% of those plays were runs. That is being embarrassingly predictable as an offensive coordinator. That kind of stuff can't happen. It just can't happen. Not only was it predictable, but it goes against what Kirk Cousins likes to do as a quarterback. This is from Austin Planet. Sounds like a wrestler. I don't know. Eye-popping advanced stat. Atlanta worked out of the pistol 52% of its plays. Did you know that Kirk Cousins had never taken more than 10 snaps out of the pistol in a game during his 13-year career? He never took more than 10 snaps in a single game as an NFL quarterback in the pistol formation. On Sunday last week, 52% of the snaps were in pistol. Cousins was 2 for 4, 15 yards, and a pick throwing out of the pistol. That's a disaster. It's predictable. You're not doing what the quarterback is comfortable with. Your quarterback looked like a statue who did not trust himself physically. Not a good week for the Atlanta Falcons. Let's move on to story number 2. The Green Bay Packers. A lot of talk about the Green Bay Packers, right? They could make a run. They could make a deep run. Maybe they could get to a Super Bowl. Jordan Love, highest paid NFL player in the history of the league. Even though he played like a half of a good season, in the postseason, he was great against Dallas. He was not very good against San Francisco. He got the contract because of contract leverage. He had the leverage in the talks. So Jordan Love goes out there with the richest contract in the NFL, and he sprains his MCL. No bueno. Now, there seems to be some mystery of whether or not he's going to be back within the next couple weeks. Maybe it'll be a week. Maybe it'll be 2 weeks. Maybe it'll be 3. He's got an MCL sprain. So I'm going to say he'll be out for 2 to 3 weeks, anywhere in that range. So what does Green Bay do at quarterback? Malik Willis. Malik Willis, the guy who could not work out in Tennessee, got surpassed by Will Levis. You saw what happened with Levis last week. Now you're asking Willis to be the starting quarterback. And Willis, he got traded to Green Bay very late in the preseason. I mean, he hasn't been there all that much. And so now Malik Willis will be your starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. A little bit of a dangerous situation. Ryan Tannehill, there's been some conflicting reports about whether or not they have reached out to Tannehill, if Tannehill was interested. in returning to the NFL? Would he be interested in, dealing with Green Bay and jumping into that program with a lot of expectations and a lot of excitement? So maybe Ryan Tannehill ends up becoming an option if this Jordan Love injury continues to drag. But Green Bay's in trouble. Malik Willis last week did not look great in the short amount of time he was out there. He has not looked very good in the NFL. I don't think you could be confident if you're the Packers. There's going to be a lot of Josh Jacobs in this offense now. You paid Jacobs good money. You got to give him the football a ton and hope that your run game survives and helps carry you. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Matt LaFleur, play caller. What can you do? What can you do as a play caller when you've got Malik Willis now as your quarterback? How much does that limit things? How much does he know of the offense? I mean, this might be a severely stripped down Green Bay offense with Malik Willis. So this isn't good. Not good at all. And you don't want to get off to a bad start, especially in that division. That division, you've got Detroit. Minnesota looked better than expected. Now, I'm not ready to buy Minnesota stock just yet. You've got Chicago. You have to expect Caleb Williams to play better in that offense, to be better as the year goes on. The defense looked pretty good. So you've got a really tough division, the NFC North, and you just lost your starting quarterback for at least a couple weeks. And Green Bay, they play Indianapolis. They play the Colts this week in Green Bay. They might be able to survive that game. They play at Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee is very good. Then you've got Minnesota, and then you play at the Rams. If you could get one out of the next two, if you can beat one of Indy or Tennessee, if you could win one of those two games and get Jordan Love back in time for that Minnesota game, then you might be in decent shape. But there is absolutely a scenario where the Packers start this year, at 0-3, 0-4, and they have to rely on Jordan Love to try to come on it back in and save the season. So that is not ideal for them. Tough week, tough opener for the Green Bay Packers. All right, get to my number one story in a minute. Raise your glasses, raise your sodas, your waters, your beers, your drinks, whatever you're doing. Have a sip on this Thursday night, getting ready for Thursday Night Football between Miami and Buffalo. This is a cerveza Mexican lager with not one, not two, but 3 limes in this puppy. So have a drink on me. I appreciate every single one of you. And as you're enjoying that drink, don't forget to click that thumbs up on YouTube. Don't forget to throw a comment in. Marilyn getting after me saying that I'm slacking. Her beer is almost gone. I got to talk a lot. There are no commercial breaks. There are no commercial breaks. And Marilyn followed that up and said, "Of course, I'm not talking." Yes. So enjoy the drink with me tonight on this Thursday. And as you do, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Nick Cattles YouTube channel. We do a Patriots podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We do this NFL podcast and craft podcast every Thursday night at 7 p.m. during the football season. So I appreciate every single one of you watching this, listening to this. Let's continue to try to build this community. All right, let's get to the biggest story. The Cleveland Browns have a major Deshaun Watson problem on their hands. This is bad. First, let's start here. He looks cooked. Maybe he wakes up one day and he finds some kind of motivation and physically he feels great, and all of this just turns complete 180. But right now, what we're seeing from Deshaun Watson is a quarterback who looks absolutely freaking cooked. Slow processing. He's slow in processing what's in front of him. He got sacked 6 times in week 1. Now, yes, some of that is on him. Some of that is on the offensive line. Some of that is the fact that you were playing against Dallas and Micah Parsons is just an absolute beast. But you can't take 6 sacks. You just can't take 6 sacks. Jacoby Brissett was pressured a ton last week against Cincinnati, and he took 1 sack. You can't take 6 sacks. Watson is a veteran. He's been in the league for a long time. He played at a high level in Houston. You can't take 6 sacks. You can't get hit a half a dozen times and go down with the football. So he's slow processing. He took too many sacks. His shoulder, I don't know. Is it shoulder maintenance? Is his shoulder healthy? Is he healthy? He doesn't look healthy at all times throwing the football. And I'll tell you this. If Deshaun Watson is what we have seen from him recently, if Deshaun Watson is what he looked like he was last week, week 1 against Dallas, Cleveland deserves everything they get. That's right. The Cleveland Browns organization deserves any trouble that they get from making the decision they made regarding Deshaun Watson when they made it. The fact that they traded for him and gave up what they gave up for him, given the off-the-field allegations and all of the things that came out at that time, to go out there to pretty much ignore what was happening with Deshaun Watson's life in that moment because you decided to sell your soul for a quarterback because you had trouble at quarterback if you're Cleveland for 20 years, 25 years. You sold your soul in the middle of all of that litigation, all of those allegations. You didn't let it settle. You traded what you traded to bring Deshaun Watson in with all of that happening in the background because all you cared about was winning football games. All you cared about was bringing in a quarterback that might actually be decent. And you did the indecent thing, in my opinion, by making that deal, especially when you made that deal. And then on top of that, on top of the fact that you traded for Deshaun Watson with everything that was going on at the time with him, the fact that you traded for him, but not only traded for him, you gave Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed. The worst NFL contract that had ever been given out at that moment in time. Hundreds of millions of dollars to a guy guaranteed who hadn't played in quite a while, who had the off-field allegations he was dealing with, and you traded for him and gave him that bucket of money. It's embarrassing. It was irresponsible. It was a bad trade. And Cleveland deserves everything they get. Jimmy Haslam and his family, that ownership group, they deserve every single bad football game that they get. I don't have any sympathy for the Cleveland Browns organization. I feel bad for the fans. But I have absolutely no sympathy for Haslam. None whatsoever. Did you know? Let's play a game of Did You Know? Did you know that Watson, his cap hit in 2025 is $72.9 million? Deshaun Watson's cap hit in 2025 is, let's just call it $73 million. Do you know what his cap hit is in 2026? The same damn amount, 72.9. Let's call it $73 million. In both 2025 and 2026, his cap hit is almost $73 million. If he continues to stink, and I'm not going to shed one single solitary tear for Deshaun Watson if he sucks out loud for the rest of his career. If he sucks for the rest of his career, if this is who he is, this will go down. This will go down as the worst trade in NFL history. And it will also go down as the worst contract in NFL history. And let me tell you this, it is very rare. It is incredibly rare to have both the worst trade and the worst contract in the history of a professional sport. But the Cleveland Browns are inching closer into attaining that. It's unbelievable. The roster construction is crippled with that Watson deal. $73 million cap hit the next 2 years. You want to talk about handcuffing, no pun intended with Deshaun Watson. You want to talk about handcuffing your roster for a few years. That's what they did. Terry Grant, a $49.99 super chat. Nick, well said, 100% agree on the Browns and Watson. Thank you, Teresa. I know you are not a drinker, but I will raise this beer up for you and your generosity. Thank you so much for supporting this program. Thank you so much for being here almost every single show live and the super chats and being part of the Patreon page. Thank you so much for that super chat. Let's just call it $50 super chat from Teresa. We call her Terry. Those close to Teresa, we call her Terry. Thank you, Terry. Gerard jumps in and says, the Brown situation is crazy. AVP probably so happy to be out of there. Yeah, they said that they fired Alex Van Pelt because he wasn't getting enough out of Deshaun Watson. Sounds like a Deshaun Watson problem to me. Sounds like a Watson problem, not so much a Van Pelt problem. But the roster construction of that team is in serious trouble because of the structure of that contract. It's just a nightmare. But Browns fans, this actually might work for you. Deshaun Watson being terrible might be the best thing for you. Why? Because if you suck this year, you end up getting a top 5 pick. Unless you traded the pick. Hold on. I want to look at this. Hold on. Let me go to NFL Draft Tankathon. Let me go to NFL Tankathon here. Because it could get worse. No, they do. All right. So Cleveland does. I thought they did. I just want to make sure. So you have your 2025 first round pick. So Watson being awful might actually help out. Because you might have something to look forward to. Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck. So maybe Watson being terrible in the end will help you Browns fans. Maybe you'll finally get that quarterback that you've desperately wanted. You might have had him in Baker Mayfield, but you moved on from him. Another story for another day. But maybe that will get you your legitimate quarterback of the future. Now, you might not be able to spend as much in free agency because you owe $73 million the next 2 years on your cap to Deshaun Watson. But the worst thing for you is if you actually just limped towards the end of the year and you end up drafting somewhere in the middle of the first round. So if you're gonna stink out loud and get that top 5 pick. If you cut Watson, you cut Watson, like that money is going to be on the books. It's a disaster. Meanwhile, for Watson, on the field and the money's not the only issue. And this goes into what I was just saying about the Cleveland Browns and their decision-making to bring him in. Another allegation. Yahoo Sports wrote about this on Monday, a new lawsuit filed against Watson. Watson was accused of sexual assault and battery and intentional infliction of emotional distress in a new civil lawsuit that was filed in Houston. The lawsuit is similar to the nearly 24 that were filed against him when he played for the Texans. The new incident is separate and unrelated to the initial claims. The NFL's reaction, Jonathan Jones from CBS posted the NFL is not considering placing Watson on the commissioner's exempt list as there's been no formal charges and the league's review has just begun. Look, the league, I don't think, is going to bail out the Browns in this. I don't think they're going to allow the Browns to, the favor of putting him on the exemption list. I don't think that's going to happen. And so, as they say, you reap what you sow. And this is the bed that you made by trading for Deshaun Watson. Cheers. Because you decided to not let things play out. You decided, it doesn't matter what happened off the field. Doesn't matter with all these allegations. We're just going to trade for the guy because he can throw a football. So congratulations. Now you got another allegation hovering around this football team like a dark cloud. They get off to a bad start, I'm telling you. If the Browns get off to a bad start, things could get really ugly in Cleveland. They got the Jaguars, then they got the Giants, they got the Raiders, they got the Commanders. I mean, the good news for Cleveland is their schedule is so damn weak at the beginning of the year. So they could still maybe win a couple of games, but disastrous. Absolutely freaking disastrous. And they deserve everything that they get. If they fail, I won't lose any sleep. Don't forget to help us out here. Dolphins, Bills kicking off at 8:15 tonight. Should be an interesting game. We're about 30 minutes away from kickoff. Tua Tagovailoa was okay week one. Tyreek Hill, of course. What happened with him before the game in Miami last Sunday? Tyreek came out yesterday and said that, he would take some of the blame because he did not roll his window down. The force, I think all of us could agree, was excessive force by the police officer in question here. I don't think it'd be crazy to believe that he might get let go. He might lose his job over the way he responded to the situation. So now you got a short week if you're Miami. You come right back. Buffalo, interesting game against Arizona. I thought Arizona got hosed a couple of times late in that game. I thought there was at least one, if not two, defensive pass interference calls that the refs just didn't call against Buffalo. And, Arizona, I think, got hosed there. But you got Buffalo, Josh Allen. Should be a very interesting game down in Miami. The question to me, the Minuteman jumps in with a comment here. Who would you rather see win tonight? Who would I rather see win tonight? Probably Miami, because I believe less in Miami than I believe in Buffalo. By the way, I don't believe much in either team. I think both will take a step back. I actually had the Jets winning that division. I might regret that in a couple of weeks. I'm not overreacting to week one. I mean, it was San Francisco at San Francisco. But I think I'd rather see Miami win. The thing about Miami, they have not played well in cold weather. They haven't really done well against adversity. They just really haven't. Against good teams, they've struggled against good teams. They've struggled in December, so they tend to struggle as the year goes on. They got to the playoffs last year. They got whooped. At least Buffalo, they got Josh Allen. And Josh Allen's always dangerous. I'm still not the biggest believer in Tua. Sorry, Tua. Sorry to your family. But I'm not a huge believer in him. I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that Tua played 1,000 times better when he had Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and a stable of backs and a very smart, good play caller offensively and Mike McDaniel as his head coach. I don't think that's a coincidence. I just don't. I think Tua is somebody that you've got to surround him with a lot of talent. And if you do that and he gets rid of the football quickly, he can put up some numbers. He can be good enough. But as soon as you ask Tua Tagovailoa to do more than you should ask him to do, it becomes a nightmare. If he doesn't get protection, he's awfully skittish in the pocket. He doesn't have a strong arm, even though, the Tua truthers or something or whatever will throw out there these video clips of him throwing a 40-yard pass in practice like it's the biggest deal in the world. So, yeah, I mean, I would, if I'm a defense, I am much more concerned with Josh Allen than I am with Tua. Yeah, I'd be worried about Miami's offense. But if you're going quarterback for quarterback, if I'm game planning against quarterbacks, Josh Allen is a much bigger problem. Much bigger problem. So that's how I feel. Kickoff in about 25 minutes, if my math is correct. I think it is. 8:15 is the kickoff. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, give us that thumbs up. We're going to do this thing every Thursday night. Tonight, Shoveltown Brewery, shout out to them. If anybody knows anybody at Shoveltown, let them know that I did this and maybe I'll get some beers from them on the house. But Shoveltown Brewery, and this is a Cerveza Mexican lager with 3 limes. Great beer. We're going to do this every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to talk football. I'm going to give you 5 of the biggest storylines in the NFL. We're going to talk about those 5 storylines. You can come on by, have a beer, have a cocktail, have a glass of wine, have a water, have a soda, whatever you're comfortable with. We don't pass judgment here. This is a no judgment zone unless we're talking about football and football players. Everybody is welcome. The drinks are cold, the water is warm, and we all love football. So don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Every like counts, especially on YouTube. We got to get that engagement. Throw a comment in. Let me know how you feel about the show. Can we do something else to maybe liven things up? We'll see. But like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe to the Nick Cattle Show. Subscribe to the Nick Cattle's channel on YouTube. Over 3,500 subscribers as of last night. Super thrilled with that. And we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're a Patriots fan, we talk Patriots every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. All right. You got to finish my beer? Is that a rule? Here I am. Let's see. Nothing but limes on the bottom now. Nothing but limes. Everybody have a great night. Enjoy your football weekend. Can't say I appreciate you enough because I appreciate you. This has been Crafts and Kickoffs, the podcast with Nick Cattles. We'll be back next Thursday night at 7 p.m. Patriots fans back tomorrow at 3 p.m. on the YouTube channel. Till then, everybody be well and be healthy and be good to each other.